Welcome back. So today we're going to talk about something a little bit different. This is the Edifier Hikate GX05 Gaming TWS. So I've done a couple gaming things and I think they're always quite interesting. This one sort of takes the cake, not so much on the sound, but on what they did on the packaging and the look and everything else. It's quite a package. So we'll start here. This is kind of what it looks like when you look at it online. You get kind of pictures like this. High-res audio, LHDC. We'll kind of get into that in a minute. On the back, what do we got? So dual mode wireless, we'll talk about that. High-res audio, RGBs, dual mic noise cancellation, and quick charging. So those are the major features, but that's not really what this one is about. Big plastic case. This thing is no joke, pretty much designed to stand out, different than every other TWS out there. So we pop this open and there you go. So this thing is a lot of metal, a lot of RGB lights. It is quite a standout, kind of a showpiece. These are the accessories are in this box up here, but there's nothing really all that good in there, just the cable and the tips. But this is what this one is all about, and this is the GX05 up close, and it's got this triangular pyramid shape to it. It's got open, there's probably a close, maybe there is no close, but yeah, this thing, when you look at it in pictures, you sort of assume that maybe they cheaped out somewhere and it is kind of metal painted plastic or some other material that you don't think is going to be real heavy metal, but no, this one is weighty and metal and very solid. So you actually get at the TWS by doing this, and it gives you quite the light show. I think there are 11 different modes on the lights, and there are lights around the edges of it. There are lights on the actual TWS shells, which kind of go in sync as well. So yeah, very, very fascinating, very showy. This one does, it is, I forgot how much it was, 100 and something. It's up there over $100. So I think they did have to do something special. And for gaming folks, I think this one is, quite the showpiece to have on your desk while you're gaming. So yeah, it is of all the things to talk about this actual set, I think normally I tend to go into sound, but this one is very much the presentation and the packaging and the metal and the lights and everything. But we'll kind of jump into it, and I will say, as I just said, so normally I would talk about the features, and focus on the sound. And I think for this one, I think people are going to pretty much buy it for the features and the look, and they just want to know if the sound is reasonable, and we will certainly get there in a minute or two. The GX05 has the sound, but the features make it the very unique set, like I said. So I'll split this one into gaming and sort of music. And on the gaming side, yes, there is a gaming mode, and they will say it goes down to about 15 milliseconds, ultra low latency. I think that comes with just about every TWS you could find these days that have a gaming mode. And it does have not dual mids, but dual mics, as you expect for noise cancellation as you're trying to speak through them for games. So this one does something a little bit different, and it does have a 2.4 gigahertz USB-C dongle. So these are the two TWS shells. This is a USB-C dongle up here. So if you're like me and you have a desktop system which doesn't have built-in Bluetooth, you could actually pop this one in your USB-C port, and it basically functions as an instant pairing. So you pop this in, and these two TWS will pair to it almost instantly. So it's not quite like Bluetooth where you pop it in and have to go through some pairing process. You pop this into your PC, pull the shells out, and bang, they are connected. It is the best plug-and-play system I've seen in a while for doing something like this, and it runs on a different band, and it's quite different. I mean, I have to admit, it's probably one of the coolest things I've seen done in a TWS, and that's a lot of work that they put into having this, and that's why they charge quite a bit of money for it. But yeah, it is absolutely cool if you have a normal PC, and mine doesn't have Bluetooth, so I actually use Bluetooth dongles to connect TWS and to measure them. And you just pop that in and bang, instantly connects. And it actually will simultaneously connect to two different devices. So you can connect to your phone and take calls and still game with it on your PC. So yeah, a lot of work. Yeah, it's quite cool. So, and I would say on kind of the nitpicky side, 2.4 gigahertz is a very busy band. If you've ever watched your Wi-Fi performance on that same band, you know that the more neighbors that you have with Wi-Fi on the same band, on the same channel, it tends to cut down on your performance. And I think when you step away from your desk, I think that's where I noticed it more. You tend to get more interference sooner than you do with Bluetooth. I do think this one was very much meant to be sitting at your desk with the USB-C transmitter not all that far from your head, and you get a very low latency, very solid connection. But as soon as you walk away, it's not quite as long distance as you would get in Bluetooth. So bit of a nitpick, but still, I think it's one of the coolest things that I've seen on a TWS to do that much work to put in another wireless band into a TWS is quite a feat, and kind of shocking that they pulled it off and it actually works. So there are two different sound profiles. There is a game sound profile, and it's really designed to catch the low end and the upper mid for imaging. It sounds kind of flatter as the upper treble is tilted but down, and they get points for using a specific game frequency response. So we'll look at that in 1 second. But yeah, pretty cool. You get two different actual game and a music sound profile. They're not the same. They're not slight variations on each other. They're kind of some of two different independent things. So on the music side, this one does do two different codecs, SBC or LHDC5. You got to pay particular attention to LHDC5 because a lot of phones don't support 5. I have phones that support other versions, but not 5 yet. So yes, they have a high-res sticker, and if your phone gets updated to LHDC5, you will have that. But for the most part, I was on SBC, and you got to be really careful with SBC as well. Is that for me, each phone has a different SBC implementation, and some sound better than others. I tried it on various phones trying to get LHDC to work, and then finally wrote to them, and they said, no, it only works on 5. There is no backward compatibility with others. So then you hear various flavors of SBC, and yeah, so pay particular attention to that if you were thinking about what that sticker meant and how you would use it. You do have to pay particular attention to what your phone actually supports. So the included tips are a total pass. They don't seal at all. They're very small. So I would definitely plan on sliding on any set that you have. That'll be a huge improvement over what they included. And it's really the only misstep. And it's kind of a glaring misstep of how bad they are. I think, do I have them on here? Yeah. So you can't really look at them and say that they look good or bad, but they don't seal in the ear. You end up with a very, very tinny sound. So yeah, they were actually shockingly bad. Considering they got everything else kind of right on and right for the money, to throw on a pair of tips that didn't make it sound as good as it should was sort of a glaring mistake for me. So the U-shaped sound signature, let's take a look at what this graph actually looks like. So for game mode, like I said, game mode catches the low end. It's got really flat mids. This is pretty much a U-shape. They really dig down hard, dropping down right into the mids. There's no real warmth or smoothing over. This is sort of a colder, sharper version of sound, which for music, that's kind of okay. For game, I think it actually leans into that. And again, I wouldn't necessarily buy this one for music. I think it's quite passable on music. And you can see they actually included a frequency response that looks like a big boosted U-shape. And it actually works pretty well because they put a nice bass curve into it. But both of these signatures will essentially work pretty well for gaming. And so on the gaming one, it does pick up those lower frequencies pretty well, and it will boost those. Really flat mids, no smoothing over, no real missing anything in the mids. And then they brought this up to about the Harmon curve, which is, again, that is pretty much the right level to pick up those sharper things, gunshots, even the sharper footsteps that have the higher frequency to them, but mostly gunshots and things that are higher frequency are going to be caught pretty well without over boosting them into where the music profile is. And then they do on the game mode, and this one is sort of where I was a bit iffy at, as they roll off the upper treble. And again, I think they were really focused on the clarity of the mids and not introducing any more fatigue or anything that might clutter up the imaging of these 2 bits. I do think that was kind of an intentional move. And I'm not going to say that it's right or wrong. I think they gave you 2 profiles to try it either way, which actually works out pretty well. And I think if I was using these for gaming a lot, I would definitely try each one on whatever game you're playing, because they are going to have slightly 2 different results. For music, as I said, this is kind of a U-shape, very clean mids, because you get a lot of sub bass. And what you can't actually see out here is the sub bass actually arcs and bumps up way out into the range that you can't hear with human hearing. And you don't see that all that often. A lot of sets, and that's why we typically cut off at 20 hertz, kind of where you could hear, but they tend to arc off that way. And this one actually bumps up. And I don't know why they were boosting such low frequencies. Maybe that was just accidental of the chip that they used, but it was kind of shocking to see it in the measurement, how far up the boost was into ranges that you couldn't actually hear. But this part, this is a nice mid-bass, sub-bass boosted shelf, drops down into very clean mids. Like I said, there's no bleed, there's no real cluttering up, there's no veiling of the mids at all. Keep everything as sharp as you can for gaming. And then you'll have 2 different versions of gunshots, right? A very boosted one, and then kind of a more relaxed one that definitely cut off the upper end of it into a more relaxed version. So possibly more of a longer session, shorter session situation going on. But yeah, I thought it was pretty cool that they gave you 2 different versions of profiles that were going to be at least workable, and it wasn't so much of an afterthought. But so pretty cool. So like I said, U-shape, boosted both ends, all that stuff is stuff I talked about. Stage, they would call it full sound stage, but with plenty of upper treble to expand the stage, and the signature has pinpoint imaging. For at least music-wise, these are kind of, I don't know, maybe in between. And let me show you this one. So this is another gaming set. So the G10, right? So the G10. And I talked about this on the G10. You do need quite a bit of bass to pick up the low frequency game sounds, and this works well. And they sort of said it works even better if you give it a little bit more. But you can kind of see where their gaming profile in the lower treble, upper mids actually hits just about where the GX05 does. And again, I thought that these were pretty good levels for gaming. So as I said, I wouldn't necessarily focus on using the music one for gaming. I think it's a little bit too boosted. But at the same time, they brought down the upper treble, and you can kind of see where G10 carried it out in a normal IEM signature. So yeah, somewhere between those 2 you'll find it. And I almost wish there was a third profile that was between the 2, but I think they gave you 2 on either side of G10, and that'll work out. One of them will probably work out in your use case. So how those affect your stage, you kind of got 2 sides of that. I think the upper treble tends to expand the stage. The boosted lower treble tends to flatten the stage, but try each one. I think the pinup being that high does flatten the stage in the music, so perhaps the gaming one is the better choice there. And the look of it, again, this one is really meant to sit on your desk, not in your pocket. Lots of RGB lights, which kind of do this if you turn them. So you get various versions of RGB lights, and lots of metal, and they will call this collectible level, and I can't disagree with what they did here as far as the amount of level, the metal and the look. Collectible, and that's how they would describe it. So yeah, that is what I got on GX05. So thank you again for tuning in, and I will see you next time.